Right then, hi there, it's John from Jvsvisual, #1 service centre in the Midlands. Now, do you remember the TW9000? They had the 4-second count cancellation and then into error. Well, here is that beast. Okay, this is the TW9000. After 4 seconds of power up, the lamp would go out, the door would close. The only thing that would continue to run was the fan and the error codes. Okay, there it is, it's all up, and there's your image. Okay, as you can see, there is the Polar Express. So there's my belly getting in the way. Okay, so there you go, it's all up and running. Now, this is a word of warning to you, because this is very important. Okay, lots of people think that repairing these projectors or the Epsom home cinema ranges is easy peasy. It isn't. It isn't at all. Okay, especially with no service manuals and no circuit diagrams, because you won't get them. Okay, now this is that TW9000, as I said, that came to me a while ago. In fact, I'd say a few months ago now. And the problems that you get with is the fact that you've got to get the components for the boards. Okay, you won't get them off Epsom. Epsom only replace the motherboards. Okay, getting the semiconductors, you have to import them. You have to import them from China, and some of them sometimes are incredibly sensitive. Okay, so you have to, they're very sensitive semiconductors, such as this one. Now, okay, now as I said, this was the one that gave you the 4-second countdown. So you got it into static standby blue LED. You powered it up, the blue LED flashed, the door opened, the lamp struck at the same time, and then after 4 seconds, the whole lot, the lamp went out, the door closed on the front lens opener, and then it shut down with the errors flashing. Okay, that's the 4-second counts. Now, I tell you why they're not easy to work on. Right, now I'm going to power this one down now. Now this is, I'm going to tell you this one, this error fault, because it's very important to address the issue and think about things before you do them. Okay, it's most important that you do actually listen to what I've got to say, because I can save you some serious cash. Okay, so I'm going to power it down. Now you're going to see, you're going to see me show you whilst I'm powering it all down. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Right, there is a guy who's on the internet that has a similar problem to this, and this is what I'm going to show you, and I want to save you all some money. Okay, this one that came to me with a 4-second shutdown shuts down as protection. It shuts down because the motherboard is taking current. The motherboard is taking current. This regulator here that sits right on the edge of the board here, okay, no, I tell you, it's not that one, it's this one in this corner here. Okay, it's a 33 controlling regulator. On the output of that regulator should give you just over 3 volts. Okay, that gets pulled down to 1 volt. Now you can actually, if you've got an analog meter, you can check the output of that regulator, because it should be round about 1k ohms. That's 1000 ohms, measuring to ground and measuring with a fluke digital meter. Okay, if it's pulled down to 1 ohm, that's more or less got a serious short on the rail. Okay, now if that's low and comes down to low ohmage, on the board directly below, round about here, there are 2 chip links. Remove the chip links and find out if the rail comes back up on the regulator. If it does, or comes up to 1k, because you don't need to power the board, you don't need the board powered in, then the chances are the main dual input interface processor is defective. Now you need to be extremely careful. You don't go around replacing the processor unless you know what you're doing and you know that the processor is defective. Okay, now I'm going to show you the processor. Here's the processor. It's a block processor and it's got nearly 150 pins. Okay, there it is, and it's an MN37 whatever, and it's the main dual input interface processor. Now if you remove the processor off the board, or you remove those links and the rail comes up, the chances are the processor will be defective. Okay, but you've got to replace that processor. Now remember, it's not easy peasy, and I'll show you the board, I'll show you the processor that it's been replaced, because I've replaced it. Because at Jvsvisual, these are the kind of things that we do. We don't board replace, as I said. If we can, we like to get away and do service works on the boards. Now the problem that you've got is with the IC, because they're not licensed through Epson, they're not the ones that was designed to work with these motherboards. Although they're the same number, some of them are hit and miss. Sometimes they won't work, sometimes they'll switch between inputs because they become incredibly sensitive. But you can, you know, if you don't want to spend thousands, because that's what it'll cost you off Epson, then change the IC and fingers crossed you can get away with it. But I can tell you now, the IC will cost you some serious cash. They're not cheap. They're not cheap. Best part of 100 quid plus. So make sure you know what you're doing, right? So here, right in the corner here, by the HDMI inputs, is the processor, right? And then it is there. You might just see that I've soldered here. Can you see that I've soldered it all in? That's how good you have to be. Now you can see how fine those legs are. There's over 100, nearly 150 legs there, all around that block processor, and you've got to solder that in. You can self-replace it. What can't speak can't lie. It's a Panasonic chip, but as I say, some of them are hit and miss. You might also find that the multiplex switching unit here, that also can go sensitive. So if you still have problems, you might find, I have once or twice replaced the switcher. Okay, so there you go. Now when you replace that block processor, don't be stupid. Don't be damn bloody stupid, because it's a sensitive processor. It's a digital HDMI processor, okay? So when you replace it, first thing you do, you cut the processor from the legs, okay? Take the chip away, and then you remove all the pins off the board of the processor. You then use solder braid, copper braid, to remove all the solder from the contacts, okay? And then you go around each individual leg doing the necessary works. Now, very important, because I said I'd save you some hundreds of pounds. Don't power up your projectors and start plugging in HDMI inputs. That's a no-no. a no-no. You don't power your units up and then start plugging in, because digital inputs don't like static. Okay, so you make sure that you make your connections and then power up your devices, and that goes with any digital device. You're absolutely crazy if you're going to be doing things like that. Okay, now when you replace that processor, you make sure, that you have your digital strap band. Okay, don't start replacing digital processors without an earthing band. Okay, and when you use your soldering iron to replace the processor, you make sure that your soldering iron end, okay, is earthed. Okay, take the soldering iron end, take your soldering iron, okay, and earth it. Make sure it's strapped to earth as well, because sometimes they're not. Okay, so whether it's a Weller, whether you need to be very mindful of it. Okay, now these chips are actually heat bonded underneath. Okay, and they have like a plate adhesive underneath the processor, so you won't get it off very easily unless you cut it all around the edge. Pardon me. Then you get a fine screwdriver, pardon me, and then lift the IC off the board. Okay, and then it will leave the copper heat plate underneath. Remove the copper heat plate. But please be careful when always plug the cables in before you power up, and then you won't blow the input processor. Okay, and that's about it really. But that's only for your 4-second error. There are multiple faults that happens with these motherboards, and I think I've gone through almost all of them. Okay, some of them are very nasty, and some of them are not so nasty. This one's nasty because you've got to replace the processor, and it's not a 5-minute job. It's a long time. Remember, you can't short the legs together. You've got to make sure the continuity of the legs are actually soldered to the board. You've got to make sure you've got a meter between each individual leg. Remember, there's nearly 150 legs around the processor, that they're not shorting to each other, because the minute you power it up, you'll blow the processor. You make sure you don't give it any static belts, so you've got to strap yourself. If you think, if you want to start giving, lots of people have been giving me negatives on the YouTube. I'm trying to help you. Yeah? If you want to give me negatives, but they're generally people who can't repair these devices or haven't got a clue anyway, so then the only thing they know what to do is to give you a negative tick, so you carry on. Alright, so there we go. Remember, don't start ripping it off the board. That's only for the 4-second error. So if you get the error around about 4 seconds, you'll sometimes realise you have got the fault, because if you put your finger, right, just get the end of your finger on the regulator, and you'll feel it get quite hot because it's taking excess current. Alright, so that's the giveaway. And 9 times out of 10 it'll be the block processor, and sometimes the switcher, but you have to be very careful, because you have to monitor and meter the output of the switcher, because it can give you high voltage DC outs, and if it does that, it will take out the interface chip that you've just purchased. Okay, I think it's pin 2 or pin 3 of the IC. Okay, the switcher that gives you the high voltage. So you need to make sure that that's not above, I think it's 2.5. So don't start replacing the block until you've made sure that's not giving you any high voltage DC out. So sort of the rail volts, 5 volts, and it sticks at 5 volts, and it'll go ping. It'll just take out your chip. right? And you know, at 100 quid, that's a lot of money to lose. So, alright, it's John from Jvsvisual. I want to thank you for your time. I've showed you, I've proved to you what I've done, and that's a tip. But there's lots of faults on these 9000s, there's lots of faults on the 9200s, there's lots on all the 8 series, I've seen them all. I've seen them all, and I've worked on them all. Okay, so thanks for looking. John from Jvsvisual, the #1 service centre in the Midlands. Thanks for watching.